So, today we're going to break down a pretty fascinating framework called the 7 Architectures of Social Initiation. Basically, it's a structured way to look at one of the biggest social hurdles out there. How in the world do you start a conversation with someone you don't know? Oh, yeah, we've all been there, right? You see someone you find interesting, maybe across the bar, in a coffee shop, wherever, and your mind just goes completely blank. That little moment of panic, that hesitation, it's a universal feeling, and it's exactly what this framework is designed to help you overcome. And look, this whole approach throws out the idea of some magical pickup line. Instead, think of it like a toolkit. It gives you a set of different strategies, these architectures, and each one is built for a different kind of situation. The whole point is to give you options, not just one single script. All right, so here's the game plan. First, we'll cover the basics of what it means to break the ice. Then, we'll dive into the different tools, starting with some low-key situational openers and working our way up to the much bolder, direct approach. And you're going to want to stick around for the end, because we'll finish with one crucial rule. And honestly, it might really surprise you. Okay, first up, breaking the ice. Before we even get into all the cool techniques, we really need to get on the same page about what this framework means by social initiation. So, according to the source material, this isn't just about making random small talk. It's defined as a purposeful start. You're intentionally starting an interaction with a stranger, and you're doing it with the underlying goal of seeing if there's a romantic connection there. So that word, purposeful, that's the key. All right, let's open up that toolkit. The first set of strategies we're looking at are situational openers. And just like the name says, these are all about using what's right there in front of you, your immediate environment, to create a really natural, low-stakes way to start a conversation. Now, within this category, the source gives us 3 specific techniques. There's the functional, the observational, and one called the current emotional state. Let's break down what each of those actually looks like. Here is a perfect example of a functional opener. It's kind of playful, sure, but notice what it's doing. It's a question or a statement that has everything to do with something you're both sharing in that same physical space. So the idea here is incredibly simple and honestly, very low pressure. You're just asking a practical question about something you're both experiencing. Hey, is the coffee any good here? It gives you a totally natural reason to talk to someone. Okay, next up is the observational opener. This one shifts your focus a little bit. You're moving from the physical environment to the social environment. You're noticing the energy of a person or a group and commenting on it. The strategy here is actually kind of brilliant. You're basically just holding up a mirror to a positive vibe that you're picking up on. It's so much better than a direct compliment on someone's appearance, because you're talking about their energy or the group dynamic, and that's way more engaging. Now, this last situational tool is a little different. This is the current emotional state opener. The key here is that it's delivered as an aside. You're saying it to yourself, but just loud enough for someone nearby to overhear. You're basically thinking out loud, and that invites a response without ever demanding one. Let's move on to our next section, which kind of raises the stakes just a tiny bit. Interactive openers aren't just about what you see around you. They're about actively creating a moment where you and another person can collaborate. And the 2 main tools in this part of the kit are the introduction opener and the opinion opener. Both of these are designed to get people talking to each other and fast. The introduction opener is, well, exactly what it sounds like. Super straightforward. You can have a friend introduce you, or you could even ask someone you just met to introduce you to their friends. It's all about bridging those social circles. You see, the whole point here is to leverage what's called social proof. When you get introduced by someone, you totally bypass that initial stranger danger barrier. You're essentially being vouched for, and that creates this instant warmth that makes conversation just so much easier. And then you've got the opinion opener. This one is really powerful because it immediately turns the interaction into a fun little debate. You're asking for their take on something, and let's be real, people generally love to share their opinions. It just jumps right past the boring small talk. Okay, now we get to the boldest tool in the entire framework, the direct approach. This one leaves absolutely no room for guessing games. You are stating your interest clearly and confidently. So here's the script right from the source. See how it works? It acknowledges that it's random, it states what you noticed, and notice it's that they seem interesting, not just hot. And then it just takes the lead. It's all about owning the fact that you're there to talk to them. But, and this is a huge but,
With the direct approach, the source makes one thing crystal clear: your delivery is everything. The words are only half of it. It's your nonverbals, right? The strong eye contact, a real smile, a warm handshake. That's what shows the confidence and sincerity that actually makes this whole thing work.
Okay, so we've gone through all the tools in the kit that you can use, but the source material is just as specific about the one tool it says you should absolutely never use to start a conversation. That's right. The number one thing to avoid, according to this framework, is giving a compliment. Specifically, a compliment about physical appearance. This is probably the most counterintuitive, maybe even controversial part of this whole system. And the reasoning they give is very specific. The source says that any compliments have to be earned later on in the conversation. The idea is that if you open with a compliment, you immediately put the other person on a pedestal, and that creates a really unbalanced power dynamic right from the start. And that brings us to the end. We've just walked through a really structured, almost scientific toolkit for starting conversations. But it does leave us with a big question to think about. When we break down something as human as connection into a set of tools and rules, where do we draw the line between a helpful technique and just a rigid script? Definitely something to chew on.